Yes, very
Fast
quick.
pace.
Fast
Thank you.
pace, no problem. My name is Nicola Sheeran. I'm from Griffith. I'm actually presenting. This is something that I think everything so far has been on ethnic groups, and I'm not. I'm diverging, so apologies, and hopefully it's a nice little, I don't know, sideways transition for you. So I'm going to be talking about teenage mums, and I guess I thought I'd start by convincing you of why we even care. Why do we care about attitudes towards teen mums and whether contact helps? Well, for me, you know, teen mums are becoming increasingly divergent from the norms associated with parenting. Now, in Australia, at least, the average age of childbearing is 30.1 years for the first child for women. And of course, teenagers, that gap is widening. We also have different expectations for parents these days of when you should become a parent, what you should have in place before you become a parent, including, and we have a really intensive parenting ideology now about what it takes to be a good parent. Which is not just about the provision of basic care. It is much more about the social and emotional well-being of your child. And again, teenage mothers can seem quite discrepant. Now, interestingly, even though we see blatant prejudice decreasing in some areas, it is not so much in this area. Actually, people feel very entitled to go up to teenage mothers and to tell them all the reasons why they should never become a parent. And so they do report blatant prejudice or discrimination across a range of locations and situations, shopping centres being the main one. But the other one that's really important is obviously services. And so they face a lot of judgment when they're accessing support. Teen mothers themselves often do not self-categorize. They don't like that label, and they don't think of them yet, and that can prevent them actually from seeking out help, of course, which is dire, because sometimes they actually really do need support. And so there'd been actually very little research done looking at, we know that they are a stigmatized group. They certainly feel self-stigma, but there'd been nothing looking at sort of the community attitudes. And that's where I wanted to come in and see what was going on in Australia. In fact, worldwide, there have been 3 studies published, 3 in the US. So, and then we've just done some stuff recently in Australia. So we do know that attitudes towards teen mums are, as you would expect, quite negative, at best ambivalent. So on a thermometer, up to 100. In Australia, it sits, I get really good replication of about 56 is the magic number. Out of 100, compared to adult parents who are usually in the 86s. And we can manipulate that and do all sorts of things, but that's really stable. In the US, it's 10 points lower. 46 is what they get on a thermometer. So that's what the 3 studies had found in America. Now, we want to predict. We're obviously trying to predict attitudes, and contact's a really common one that obviously people put in. However, it was really discrepant results. First of all, it's really badly measured. So they quite simply say, do you have a teen mum in your family, and or friend in some studies, and or acquaintance. And it's only a categorical variable. And we get complete inconsistency. And so when we were starting to do studies over here, we thought, right, let's improve measurement. The very first study that we did, we just wanted to look at the nature, so how close, so getting at closeness. So we did still ask about the nature of the relationship and whether or not, you know, who they were, and then how close that was, and we got nothing actually. And so right about that time, Linda came to Griffith and Fiona was already there. So we started talking about positive and negative contact. And I went, now this to me actually makes sense, right? Because if, depending on, again, your orientation going into contact with a teen mum, you've got your frame. Then depending on that teenage mother and who they are and how stereotypical they might be, this could very easily be a negative contact experience. And that, of course, will have effects. So we wanted to explore that. So we were looking at whether the nature, the positive or the valence of contact predicted attitudes. We had a community sample. I should also say the 3 studies in America were done exclusively with students. Scarily, they were done with nursing and midwifery students and or other health students, and still got the really low mean. We did use Facebook and a whole range of, you know, trying to get a really representative. We failed epically, as you do with men. So we have 85% female. We also failed very badly with education. So we've got a highly educated sample, 15 years. So for non-Australians, that's equivalent of a bachelor's degree, basically, as our average. Primarily Caucasian, which is relatively representative, and about 70% had had contact with a teen mother. About 40% of those had a teen mother in their family. Then they had another 30% had it as a friend. We ended up with a really small number who said other. They tended to be health professionals working in the area. So yes. So we asked just, you know, have you had contact, yes or no, just dichotomously. We then did a 5-point from never to always for positive and negative on how frequently. We wanted to control for age, education, and empathy. And the reason being those 3 predictors are strongly related. We wanted to partial that out and see if contact still had an effect. In terms of our DBs, we kept the feelings thermometer, and there's this measure that had been developed in the States called the Positivity Towards Teen Mothers Scale. They use it as 2 subscales, and they call one the supportive subscale, and the other one's a judgmental subscale. I traditionally use it as a total score, which also can be done. But given that we'd had some inconsistencies in the States, I wanted to do some of the analyses with this, which I'll show you. So this is the one that I broke down. And so with the supportive, which tends to be a more positive thing, so like teen mothers can do well, they can be good parents. We do get an effective just contact versus not, it's not very big. And we get nothing with the judgmental, and the judgmental ones tend to be items around, you know, they don't deserve to be on welfare and things like that. And we do get an effective contact just on the feelings thermometer. We then did a couple of regressions, and that's the correlations matrix. I'll come back. So the regressions were really interesting. We did it hierarchically, so control for the first 3. We put positive in first, and that was mainly because we were expecting actually negative to be driving a lot of this. Turns out that positive was a significant predictor, so was negative, but the positive was contributed to more of the uniqueness, still only accounting for about 17% of the variance. And that's in the total PTTM, almost exactly the same in the feelings thermometer, and again, accounting for about 17% of the variance. So I guess, you know, we found this, it's replicated in this place. So both contribute to the frequency. For me, I think we're still not quite getting at who is that contact with and what are your perceptions of that particular, you know, is it lots of people? Is it just one? And I've been really interested in some of the neighborhood effects because I think that might have something to do with it as well. Anyway, my time is up, so I will stop.
You may not have this, but I'm wondering about any differences between urban or rural populations. Do you have any information on that yet?
In terms of the participants?
Yeah. And any differences in groups or communities?
So no, I don't have that. I also doubt I could get that with the data we've got. I'm assuming mostly we'd be urban, but we didn't collect it. And yes.
I'm interested also in prevalence, or is there any information on teen mothers in general in that?
Yes. The main one is going to be related to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, because obviously they're in a lot of the regional and remote. We know it's 7 times higher rates of teenage pregnancy in those areas, so that would conflate that relationship.
Yeah.
But no, not really. I mean, you get there's representative stuff that shows the rates. Generally, it's pretty low, actually. We've got really low rates in Australia compared to other places in the world. But no, I haven't looked at where the participants live as a moderator.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
No worries.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed your presentation. I think it's a really interesting target group, actually, and well worth pursuing. One of the things I thought from your first array of pictures was actually whether you get differences in the evaluation of in-group and out-group teen mums. Yeah. Or are they just all super categorized as teenage mothers?
So the paper we just got published, actually, it's really depressing if you'd like to read it. We manipulated whether the teenage mother was presented, and adult, actually, we had a 2x2, of whether they were Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, or or Anglo teenage mother in Australia, and we got a floor effect. We just it doesn't matter what you do, and what we've manipulated so far, it's just low, and so there was no significant differences between the race of the mother for the teen mums.
The second question, you controlled for empathy. So was that dispositional empathy?
We used the EQ, yeah. So just, yeah. And I was actually, after hearing yesterday, I actually think it might be mediating. I'd love to have a look at mediation. I was going to do that at 2:30 this morning, but I didn't quite get there. I couldn't sleep last night.
And you really should do some work in the UK, because the UK is dreadful attitudes. I mean, we don't lead the world in very much anymore in the UK, but we're doing very well on teenage pregnancies.
Yeah, you are. There's some really fascinating stuff that was being coming out of the UK, explaining the rates actually. And what they were saying is that if you are a member of a group, so in certain areas in the UK, and we know that it's related to SES and social disadvantage, where there is high rates of crime or lower life expectancy, you actually see increases in teenage pregnancy, because it's a reproductive strategy to ensure the survival of your genes. Yeah.
It's also a strategy that is the sort of the social myth, to get access to social housing, so that then you get some interesting variables like threat, like realistic threat, that might be interesting for your.
I did that one, presented at SASP. Happy to chat later.
And lastly, so your presentation's really got me thinking.
Neat.
And lastly, I think extended contact.
Because
I'm
again,
where the hell people meet these teenage mums, and I think a lot of it just gets passed on through rumor and chat.
Yeah, that came up yesterday. Yeah, but yes, I agree. I would love to look at that actually. But yes, thank you. That was excellent.